colleague Dan Hannan. I've known Dan now for 10 years, and he has been a marvellous guy and a marvellous colleague. And I've always, and our other colleagues in the Parliament, had an enormous respect for both his powers of thought and his powers of speech, and we've heard him speak many times. But I think even we were bowled over by the amazing speech he gave, was it 3 weeks ago? I had the privilege of being sitting next to him, because I don't know whether he happens to have mentioned that he was thrown out from the European People's Party into the outer darkness of the so-called non-Anscree. And I was delighted to welcome him there, because of course I was thrown out of the European People's Party some time before. So we now have two non-Anscree Conservatives there. And you may have noticed that in that debate, the reason that Dan got to speak was because only the leaders of groups speak. The leader of the EPP, the leader of the Socialists, the leader of the Liberals. And of course you come right down the pecking order until you get to the non-Anscree, which is not really a group at all. It doesn't have a leader, but if you go and pitch for the opportunity, you may get it. Now when Britain had the presidency of the European Union, and we had Tony Blair of sacred memory come out on 3 occasions to address the Parliament, there were these speaking opportunities, and on each of those occasions I managed to get the time. I was particularly amused because on those occasions, following me, came the speaker, the second speaker for the EPP group, who happened to be the leader at the time of the Conservative delegation. And I'll never forget the first time this happened, and the speakers list flashes up on the screen, and suddenly the leader of the delegation saw that where he was waiting for his name to come up, my name came up, and it caused a certain amount of excitement. But on this occasion, Dan got that speaking slot, so he was the only British Conservative to speak. The only way you can get these speaking opportunities as things stand at the moment with the Conservative Party and the EPP is to be out of the EPP and in the non-Anscree. And as I say, I and my colleagues were simply astonished. I think Dan was perhaps astonished too, at the extraordinary impact that speech had. And I haven't been counting the hits either, but it was 2 million last time I looked. I've no doubt it is much higher now. And I was privileged to sit alongside Dan and bask in just that little bit of the reflected glory, and also be seen by 2 million people, many of whom have commented while congratulating Dan, and I saw you alongside him. So Dan, it's wonderful that after all that achievement of yours that you come here and speak to the Freedom Association here in Cheltenham, and we are extraordinarily grateful. While I'm thanking people, let me also thank you all for being here, and let me especially thank Simon for the work which he has done over the last couple of years. I think over the last couple of years, which happens to coincide with the period that I've been privileged to be chairman of the Freedom Association, I think the average age of the membership of the Freedom Association must have come down by about 2 decades, which is an excellent thing. But there is a point here. I think there was a curious and mistaken view 5-10 years ago that all these issues of freedom and so on were a bit esoteric, and only a few old sort of buffers in Tunbridge Wells really cared about them. Suddenly we are starting to see what life is like when you don't have freedom. Now Dan's done the analysis of what has gone wrong with the government and the way that the establishment has taken over from democracy as a way of running the country. I was just going to mention very briefly, and I will be brief because you've heard a very excellent speech, you don't need me to go on for a long time, but the sorts of issues that are coming up now. A serious proposal that new cars should be sold with black boxes that would enable the authorities to know how fast you were going, where you were, when, and what direction you were going in. How soon before, with Galileo. The only silver lining on the issue is that these black boxes are going to be run off the Galileo satellite system. So it may well it may well not happen in our lifetime. We will hope for the best. We are now being told that the government will collect data on what phone calls we've made and what emails we have sent. We have more surveillance cameras in this country than anywhere else in the world, I understand. And are we any safer for it? Some criminals are caught by these methods, but many are not. The DNA database, where innocent or guilty, your DNA can be put into a database. And even some voices are saying, well, what a wonderful tool for fighting crime. Maybe everybody should have their DNA in the DNA database. And we have the government coming and telling us what we ought to eat. We ought to have 5 portions of fruit and vegetables every day. They're suggesting now that everybody who is middle-aged should go and be checked for their weight and be advised how to lose weight, as though it wasn't their own business. We have people not allowed to smoke indoors anywhere. Now, I personally absolutely hate smoking. But when I arrive at a venue and I find that little line of addicts outside smoking on the pavement, possibly in the rain, 25% of my fellow citizens smoke. And I think they have rights too. And I think we've now reached the stage where the persecution of smokers is almost beyond belief. Every detail of our lives we are advised about and told what to do. We need to get the government off our backs, and they must leave us to make adult decisions in our own way. These are the issues that the Freedom Association believes in. We believe in liberty with responsibility. We believe in enterprise and free markets. We believe in low taxes and limited governments. If any of you were listening to Boris Johnson earlier this afternoon, he came within an ace of calling for the Conservatives to make a commitment to reverse the 50% maximum tax rate. He didn't quite say so, but I think it was the subtext of where he was going to. We believe in low taxes and limited government. We believe in family and nation. Those are simple principles that people have believed in for many years. If you go to America, they are Jeffersonian principles. This is the argument we need to carry forward, and I'm grateful to all of you for being at this event and being committed to those principles. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.